Hello everybody, in this particular video lecture I would like to discuss some basic concepts which are related to a transformer. So my discussion will be mainly limited to single phase two winding transformer. So first of all the question comes in mind that what is actually a transformer. So there are various possible definitions possible in order to define a transformer. Let me define transformer in this way. A transformer is an electromagnetic device. A transformer is an electromagnetic device which is capable of transferring electrical energy from one electrical circuit to another electrical circuit through the medium of magnetic field and without change of frequency. So we are saying that transformer is an electromagnetic device and it is capable of transferring electrical energy from one electrical circuit to another electrical circuit through the medium of magnetic field and without change of frequency. The energy will be transferred from one circuit to another circuit. That means when electrical energy is being transferred from one electrical circuit to another electrical circuit, the frequency is not altered, frequency is not changed. Further, we see that the transfer of electrical energy from one electrical circuit to another electrical circuit is taking place through the medium of a magnetic field. So a magnetic field is involved, and with the help of that magnetic field it is possible to transfer energy from one electrical circuit to the another electrical circuit. Now these two electrical circuits between which the transformer is capable of transferring these two electrical circuits where we say that the electrical energy is being transferred from one electrical circuit to another electrical circuit. What is there that the two electrical circuits in question, they are actually electrically isolated. So this is a very important point which should be remembered, is that the two electrical circuits between which the energy transfer can take place with the help of this electromagnetic device which is known as transformer. So these two electrical circuits are electrically isolated. That means they are electrically not connected. There is no electrical connection between these two electrical circuits as far as a transformer is concerned. So the only method or the only medium through which the electrical energy can be transferred from one electrical circuit to another electrical circuit is the medium of magnetic field. So this magnetic field is very important and integral part of this device which is known as transformer. It is the magnetic field, or it is the medium of magnetic field through which electrical energy is being transferred from one electrical circuit to your another electrical circuit. However, these two electrical circuits are electrically isolated, they are not electrically connected. So the question may arise in the mind of the audience is that for what purpose we do need, why do we need actually, or rather for what purpose we need a transformer. So a transformer is a versatile device. Versatile device, I mean to say that the size and rating of transformer, it is going to vary from very small rating of say 5 volt ampere or your 12 volt ampere up to mega volt ampere, that is MVA. So the rating of the transformer is actually going to vary about a very large range from volt ampere, few volt amperes, let's say 10 volt amperes, to up to 20 mega volt ampere, that is 20 MVA. or in terms of weight you want to see, then in terms of weight, the size of a transformer can be so small that it can be weighing around 100 grams or 200 grams. And in case of megavolt ampere, that is MVA rated transformer, megavolt ampere transformer, which are actually your power transformers, this MVA rated transformer or the megavolt ampere rated transformers are nothing but they are power transformers which are used in power system for transmission of huge electrical power from the generating end to the your receiving end. So this MVA rated transformer are generally the power transformer. So the rating and the mass are going to vary about a huge range. The weight of the small size transformer, let's say maybe your 10 volt ampere or your 20 volt ampere, which is used inside your amplifiers, that is speaker, the audio speaker, it may be weighing around 100 grams or 200 grams, and those transformers which are used as power transformer in power system, those transformers are going to weigh hundreds of tons. So the use of the transformer is going to vary or differ from the area of application. For example, in case of power system, in case of electric power system, what is done, your other forms of energy is transformed into mechanical energy, and this mechanical energy is converted into electrical energy with the help of an alternator, or you may also call the alternator to be your three-phase synchronous generator. So this alternator or the three-phase synchronous generator, it is going to convert the input mechanical energy into output electrical energy, but the output electrical energy which is being available across the stator terminals of an alternator or three-phase synchronous generator, this electrical energy is usually available in a voltage range which is ranging between 11 kilovolt to 33 kilovolt due to your physical limitation imposed by a phenomena which is known as partial discharge between the end turns of the winding and other constraints. So due to this due to the problem of partial discharge which can take place between the end turns of the windings which are placed in the stator slots of an alternator, and due to other physical limitation, it is not possible to generate electrical energy at a voltage which is more than your 33 kilovolt. So usually the voltage at which electrical energy is available, from an alternator or three-phase synchronous generator is in the range of 11 kilovolt to 33 kilovolt. But for achieving higher efficiency in transmission of electrical energy, it is desirable that the electrical energy is transmitted through the power transmission line at a much higher voltage, say in the range of 400 kilovolt or 765 kilovolt, like that. However, the electrical energy which is available from the alternator is in the range of 11 kilovolt to 33 kilovolt. So what we are not disputing, we are not saying that the alternator is not capable of delivering power in the range of megawatt. Alternator or the three-phase synchronous generator, this can develop power in the range of megawatt, but the voltage at which the electrical energy is being made available across the stator terminals of the three-phase synchronous generator or an alternator is usually in the range of 11 kilovolt to 33 kilovolt due to physical limitation. So what has to be done? This voltage of say 11 kilovolt or 22 kilovolt, or at most it can be of around your 33 kilovolt, this voltage needs to be stepped up. so that we can transmit electrical energy at a much larger voltage. So that what will happen, the I square R loss or the copper loss in the power transmission line will reduce, and thereby the efficiency of transmission will be improved. So that is one area where we can use the transformers. So usually the transformer which is used for stepping up the voltage which is available from an alternator or three-phase synchronous generator, that voltage is stepped up by a transformer which is known as generator transformer. So this generator transformer is of the rating in the range of MVA, that is megavolt ampere, and it is weighing hundreds of tons. On the other hand, the another application of this transformer can be for matching the impedance of the source with that impedance of the load. We have studied in our circuit theory, there is a theorem known as maximum power transfer theorem. So according to maximum power transfer theorem, what is desirable? It is desirable that the impedance which is seen by the voltage source should be such that the impedance which is seen by the voltage source should be such that it is equal to the internal impedance of the voltage source. If the impedance is of only resistive in nature, and if it is of both resistive and reactive in nature, in that case it should be complex conjugate. That means the impedance of the load should be the complex conjugate of the impedance of the source voltage. So this we have studied while studying your maximum power transfer theorem. So in that we have studied that the load impedance and source impedance, they should be equal so as to transfer maximum power, or rather so as to deliver maximum power to the load from source. So this transformer which are in usually of very small size in the range of volt ampere, say 10, 20 or 40 volt ampere, these transformers are usually used in electronic circuit, and the purpose of using transformer in that electronic circuit is to match the impedance of the load and impedance of the source, so that if there is a matching of source impedance and load impedance, then maximum power can be delivered to the load by source. So this is achieved by the help of transformer. So this is one area of application of transformer. Another area can be that we are sending electrical energy at a very high voltage, let's say 400 or 765 kilovolt or 400 kilovolt. So now this high voltage is being received at the receiving end of the power system. Receiving end means where we have our consumers or load present. Consumers can be of different type: industrial consumer, domestic consumer, commercial consumer. So when electrical energy is being transported through this power transmission line from the power generating station, so that electrical power is transmitted at a very high voltage, so as to minimize the I square R loss in the transmission lines. The copper loss or the I square R loss will be minimized in the transmission line, because electrical power is given by V into I. So if voltage is increased, so for the same power current will decrease, so I square R loss will also decrease. But this high voltage is not useful if you look at the consumer. Maybe in case of industrial consumer, there is an induction motor which is rated at a voltage of 33 kilovolt. So the industrial consumer is having a three-phase induction motor, and that three-phase induction motor is rated at a voltage of 33 kilovolt. But we are transmitting the power at a voltage of say 400 kilovolt. So what needs to be done? Again we need to step down the voltage from 400 kilovolt to a voltage which is suitable for the industrial consumer. So there again you need a transformer for stepping down the voltage. So you see, we are requiring different voltage levels throughout the power system. Whether it is sending end, whether it is receiving end, we are requiring different voltage levels. So this transformer is making it easier for achieving any voltage level. That means You can either step up the voltage with the help of transformer, or you can even step down the voltage with the help of transformer. So this popularity of AC transmission system, the popularity of AC transmission system can be attributed to the use of transformer. It is because of this transformer only it is possible, or rather it was transformer which made it possible for the AC system to become more popular compared to the DC transmission system. Now let us not deviate there. There is a unending discussion on that way. Let us come back to our topic, which was your single phase transformer, or rather I should be more precise that it is single phase two winding transformer. So what is the meaning of single phase two winding transformer? Single phase two winding transformer means that this transformer will have two windings, two sets of winding. So that's why we are calling it to be a single phase two winding transformer. Now let me first of all make you familiarize with the physical construction of a transformer. Actually, this is not the entire physical construction, rather I should say that it is the inside portion of the transformer. This entire thing will be inside some casing or some transformer tank. It depends upon the rating. Actually, it simply depends on the rating. If the rating of the transformer is in megavolt ampere, that is MVA, in that case this entire structure of the transformer will be immersed in oil, and that oil will be filled in a tank which is known as transformer tank. So you think of a tank or a rectangular box or cube inside which oil is filled up, and in that you will simply immerse this structure of the transformer. So that is your oil immersed, or you can say that is a oil immersed type your power transformer. So if you have a transformer where the entire core of the transformer is immersed in oil, in that case you may take that the oil is serving two functions. One is it is working as an insulator as well as it is working as a coolant. So in that way you can think that if the entire core of the transformer is immersed in oil, then the oil there is serving your two purpose. The oil is working as an insulator as well as it is working as a coolant. Now this is the structure of a transformer. If you notice, I have drawn this diagram twice so that the marking which is indicated here, they don't become clumsy. So that's why I have drawn it twice. So it's my duty to inform you that although here the core has been indicated to be a solid core, but it is not like that. Actually the core of a transformer is always laminated. So you see it is written over here, laminated transformer core. So wherever you will find the core of the transformer, that core of the transformer has to be laminated transformer core, or you may also use the word your magnetic core. So this can be also termed as the magnetic core of the transformer. Why we are calling it to be the magnetic core of the transformer? Because this is the structure through which the magnetic lines of flux will be established. So you see, we have said in the definition of transformer that a transformer is an electromagnetic device which is capable of transferring electrical energy from one electrical circuit to another electrical circuit through the medium of magnetic field and without changing the frequency. So we have talked about the medium of magnetic field, and also we have seen that it is very much essential for a working of a transformer that some magnetic field is being created, or rather some magnetic field is being set up. So for setting up the magnetic field in a transformer, we need a path, and that path will be the path of the magnetic lines of flux. So when magnetic lines of flux are being set up in a transformer, so those magnetic lines of flux, they are going to follow a path, and the path which will be taken up by the magnetic lines of flux is nothing but the transformer core, or you may call it to be a transformer magnetic core. So the structure of a transformer magnetic core looks like this. So you see that it is comprising of several layers. Although the number of layers which I have indicated is very less, so it is just a symbolic representation that the core of the transformer is laminated. If you consider, then the thickness of this lamination, let me indicate over here, this thickness of lamination, this thickness of the lamination is very small in case of transformer. What is the range? The range is varying between 0.35 mm to 0.5 mm. So this part of the transformer core is the thickness of each lamination. This is the thickness of each lamination. So this thickness of each lamination is varying between a range which is around 0.35 mm, that is millimeter, 0.35 millimeter up to 0.5 millimeter. So it varies between a range. So the range of variation is 0.35 mm to 0.5 mm. So this is the thickness. Although I have shown it to be a much larger, but you take that this transformer core is comprising of several number of laminations, which are known as transformer lamination, and the thickness of this transformer lamination, which is indicated by this width, the thickness of this transformer lamination is in the range of, the thickness of this transformer lamination is in the range of 0.35 mm to 0.5 mm. Okay. Now, why the transformer core is actually laminated? Why we are not going for this kind of structure? You see, this kind of structure would have given you a solid core of the transformer, or rather a solid magnetic core. But we are not going for this solid magnetic core. Rather, we are going for a laminated magnetic core for the transformer. So this laminated magnetic core for the transformer is provided with the sole purpose of minimizing the eddy current loss which takes place in the transformer core. So there is a loss which is known as eddy current loss. So this eddy current loss has to be minimized. So for minimizing the eddy current loss, we are actually using laminated transformer core. So why actually the thickness of the lamination is made such small? You see, the range is between 0.35 mm to 0.5 mm. So such small thickness is necessitated. This small thickness is necessitated with the intention that we need to minimize the eddy current loss to a great extent, and we know, or rather we will see, that the eddy current loss is usually proportional to square of the thickness of the lamination. So we know that eddy current loss is proportional to square of the thickness of the lamination. That means if the thickness of the lamination is smaller, then eddy current loss will be also smaller, and if the thickness of the lamination is bigger or larger, then eddy current loss will be also larger. So in short, we say that in a transformer, or rather in general, you can say that eddy current loss is proportional to square of the thickness of the lamination. Now you need to observe this one thing, that if you go on placing the lamination one after another, then the transformer core size is going to increase in this direction. So this thing is known as direction of lamination. So we need to remember one more thing, is that the direction of eddy current flow will be always perpendicular to the path of the flux. So this blue line actually indicates the path of the flux which is established through the transformer magnetic core. So this blue line indicates the path of the flux which is established through the transformer magnetic core. So the direction which is perpendicular to this path will be along this direction. So this is the direction of eddy current flow also. So eddy current flow will be always in a direction which is perpendicular to the direction of the lines of flux. So this is the direction of the lines of flux. So eddy current will be flowing in a direction which is perpendicular to this. For example, let me draw some coordinate axis. Let's say this is our z axis, this is our x axis, and this is our y axis. So these are the three axes. It's you take this to be a three-dimensional coordinate system. So there are three coordinates x, y, z. So if z is the direction of the flux phi, then eddy current loss will be in a direction which is perpendicular to the direction of flux. So direction of flux is indicated along the z axis. Direction of flux is indicated along the z axis. So the direction which is perpendicular to the z axis, direction which is perpendicular to the z axis is along x direction. So the direction of x will give you the direction of eddy current flow. So this is going to give you the eddy current flow direction. Okay. So this is your eddy current flow direction. This is the direction of the eddy current flow along x axis. So we say that eddy current direction or the flow or the direction of flow of eddy current is perpendicular to the direction of the flux. So this is the direction of the flux and the direction of eddy current is perpendicular to this. So that's why you see that laminations are stacked one after another in this direction, because eddy current will move in this direction which is perpendicular to the flux. This is the direction of the flux and this is the direction which is perpendicular to the flux. So eddy current will move in this direction. So when it moves in this direction, it is going to encounter these laminations which are very small, thickness in the range of 0.35 mm to 0.5 mm. So you know that eddy current loss will be less, because eddy current loss is proportional to square of the thickness of the lamination. So the thickness of the lamination is very small, and eddy current loss, or rather I should use the word eddy current flow. Eddy current flow is in this direction along the direction LK. Eddy current flow is along this direction, along the direction LK, or along the direction MJ, or along the direction WT, or along the direction QR. So the flow of eddy current is along this direction which is perpendicular to the flux. And as we know that eddy current loss is proportional to square of the thickness of lamination, square of thickness of lamination. So since the thickness of lamination in this direction is made very small, in the range of 0.35 mm to 0.5 mm, so eddy current loss is reduced. Actually, one more thing is done for reducing the eddy current loss. What is that? Each side of this lamination are painted by varnish on both the sides. That means you will put up a coating, or rather I should use the word insulating coating. We will paint both sides of this layer or this lamination by a insulating paint such as varnish. So if you paint both sides by varnish, what will happen? When eddy current moves in this direction ALK, it is going to face the insulation resistance due to varnish paint which is given on this side, and likewise when it moves from this layer to the adjacent layer, when eddy current moves from this layer to the adjacent layer, again it will face the insulation resistance due to the varnish paint which is applied on both sides of the lamination for the next layer. So this is also one way of reducing the eddy current flow in a further way, that we paint both sides of the transformer lamination by insulating paint such as your varnish. Now this is one possible scheme. You see, these things are basically your laminations or transformer core lamination you can call. So these are transformer core lamination. So you see that here two L-shaped laminations are taken, L-shaped. There also you have an L-shaped lamination. So what is missing here is that the orientation in this particular layer, which we are calling as our first layer. This particular layer we are calling as first layer. Where is the joint taking place? The joint is taking place over here and here. We are calling this joint as butt joints. Likewise, in second layer, we have again two L-type lamination. In the second layer also we have two L-type lamination. But in this L-type lamination, what do you find? That the butt joints are not at these corners, rather they are at the other corners, like indicated here. So what we do, first we place this first layer. So where is the joint? At the corner MJ and the corner WT. Then over this first layer, I will put up this second layer of lamination, which is again two L-shaped lamination. There are two L, this is one L, this is another L. So first we have put up this first layer, and on top of this first layer, I will put up this second layer. So when I am going to put up this second layer on top of this first layer, you will notice that the joint is no longer along MJ and WT. Rather, the joint has now along KL and QR. So you just need to correlate these corners which are named. KL is this corner, so this corner is associated with this corner, KL. Likewise, MJ is this corner, so this corner is associated with this corner, MJ. This corner is associated with QR, and QR is associated with this corner of the transformer core, QR. And remaining WT is here at this corner, and we have WT at this corner. Okay. So what we do, first we place these lamination which we are calling as first layer. So where are the joints? Joint is at MJ and WT. On top of this first layer, I will put up the second layer. So when I am putting the second layer over first layer, the joint is no longer along MJ and WT. Rather, now there is a joint along KL and QR. And on top of second layer, again I will put up this first layer lamination, or rather I will put up a lamination which is having same orientation as that of the first layer. So that will be our third layer. So you may also call this to be first layer. This can be also called to be third layer. So after third layer, I will again put up another layer of insulation whose orientation will be same as that of the second layer. So this can be also called to be the fourth layer. Then again I will have a orientation which is similar to first layer. So this is your fifth layer, seventh layer, this is your sixth layer, eighth layer, in that way. So we will go on putting up the lamination one over another in this way. First layer orientation will be followed, that means the joints will be there at which corner? Joint will be at the corner WT and MJ, and over first layer I will put up the second layer. So in second layer, where are the joints? At the corner KL and QR. So after you have placed second layer, again you put up the first layer. That means you should put up a layer which is having same orientation as that of the first layer. That means let's call that to be third layer, because first layer we have already put up, and on top of first layer we have put up your second layer. After second layer we will put up the third layer, but third layer will be in the same orientation as that of the first layer, and on top of third layer we will put up again this second layer. Actually it's not second layer, it's actually your fourth layer, but its orientation will be same as that of the second layer. So in this way, if you place the lamination of the transformer core, then a core like this will be built up. If I am going to place the lamination one over another in this way, first layer, second layer, then again third layer, fourth layer, then this kind of structure will evolve. But what advantage you get if you place in this way? The joint which are there at the corner MJ and WT for first layer, for third layer, fifth layer, seventh layer, and the joint which is there at the corner KL and QR for the second layer, fourth layer, sixth layer, eighth layer. So these joint will become staggered or they will become alternate. So if they are becoming alternate, then the length of the air gap along this direction, that is MJ or LK, the length of the air gap along direction MJ or LK, this length of the air gap along this thing will become half, because the layers of the transformer core laminations are alternately placed and oriented in such a way that air gap length along this LK and MJ will become half. Now, this is also advantageous not only from the point of view of minimizing the air gap length along this direction along MJ and LK. Not only that advantage is being achieved by placing the layers in this way, that air gap length is half, but there is another additional advantage, that the mechanical strength of the core will be much stronger, or it will be much better. The mechanical strength will be much better in case this alternate arrangement is being formed. Now what is done actually, another thing is that we add a material named as silicon with iron. So usually the percentage of addition of silicon in iron is limited to not more than 5%, rather it is less than 5%. So whenever we are adding silicon in iron, so the percentage of silicon is less than 5%. That means we don't add silicon more than 5% with respect to volume in a iron. Why is it so? Because the addition of silicon with iron above 5%, it makes the material more brittle. So it has been observed that the material becomes more brittle in nature. That means they are susceptible to be broken easily. So it becomes brittle if the percentage of silicon addition with iron is more than 5%. Now why at all we will add the silicon with iron? This addition of silicon with iron ensures that this addition of silicon with iron ensures that the electrical resistivity of the transformer core is increased. So if the electrical resistivity of transformer core is increased due to addition of silicon with iron, where the percentage of addition of silicon with iron is limited to 5% or less than 5%, in that case what happens, the electrical resistivity of the transformer core increases and thereby eddy current is further reduced, because if the resistivity is increased, then eddy current loss, or the flow of the value of eddy current will further reduce. So what is actually also done, we usually mix, or rather we add silicon with iron, where the percentage of silicon addition with iron is limited to 5% or less than 5%. What happens, the electrical resistivity of the transformer core is increased and thereby the value of the eddy current is further reduced, because with the increase in resistivity of the transformer core, the value of the eddy current decreases. So this is also done. Now usually what has to be done is that we have to build a magnetic core for the transformer, which will provide a high reluctance, high permeability or very low reluctance path. So we need to construct the magnetic core of the transformer. By keeping in mind or by keeping in view that the reluctance which is offered to the magnetic lines of flux, is very small, as small as it is, as small as it can be possible. Another is that the losses, the magnetic losses which are taking place in the transformer magnetic core, it has to be reduced. So for minimizing the magnetic losses in the transformer magnetic core, already we have taken up one step, and it is use of laminated transformer core instead of solid. So we are not using solid transformer core, we are using laminated transformer core for minimizing the eddy current loss. But the magnetic losses which takes place in the transformer magnetic core can be classified into two types, and they are eddy current loss and hysteresis loss. So for minimizing this hysteresis loss, we need a magnetic material whose BH loop area will be very small. So usually we use a material which is known as silicon steel, or rather I should say that these laminations which are shown over here, these laminations which are indicated over here, these laminations are usually made of material which is known as silicon steel, and this silicon steel is of CRGO type. CRGO means cold roll grain oriented silicon steel. So CRGO is standing for the word cold rolled grain oriented CRGO. So these materials which are used for making the transformer core laminations are usually from material which is known as silicon steel, and further if you use CRGO silicon steel, that is cold rolled grain oriented silicon steel, in that case the hysteresis loss is further minimized. Or rather you can say that if the direction of the magnetic lines of flux are established in the direction in which the grains of the silicon steel are oriented, in that case the lines of flux will further experience very small reluctance. So the direction of the lines of flux through the transformer core, should be oriented in the rolling direction of the silicon steel. So that is one point which we need to keep in mind, that usually we use a material which is known as silicon steel for building or making up the transformer laminations. And this silicon steel, if it is CRGO type silicon steel, that is cold rolled grain oriented silicon steel, in that case we have further advantage that if the lines of flux are directed along the direction of rolling, in that case it will have very small reluctance which is offered. Now why we at all prefer this kind of thing? Actually we need a magnetic material which is of soft iron type. So what is the essentiality, or rather what is the essence of using this soft iron based material for building the transformer magnetic core? If you use soft iron, then soft iron is characterized by very steep magnetization curve, very narrow and very thin BH loop area, and it is having less hysteresis loss per cycle of magnetization. So these are some of the advantages of soft iron. Let me show the hysteresis loop. For soft iron. So for showing this soft iron, we need to choose two axes. One is along the horizontal axis we are plotting H, that is magnetizing field intensity or the magnetic field intensity, and along y axis we are plotting B, that is magnetic flux density. Now the BH curve for a soft iron looks like this. So you see here, for this BH loop, you see the area of the loop is very thin and narrow, we have got very thin and narrow BH loop area for this, isn't it? So the hysteresis loss will be less. Another thing is that it is going to get magnetized in a very short span of time because it is rising in a steep manner. So that's what I was saying, that soft iron are those magnetic materials which are characterized by very fast or very steep rise in magnetization curve, and also they are characterized by thin and narrow BH loop area. Let me draw another one so that you can compare and find out. Let me draw another one where you will find that the magnetization is not that much steep, and also you will find that the loop area is also not narrow, rather it is large. Let me draw it for this another magnetic material. So let's draw like this. So this is another magnetic material. You see here, what do you find, that the loop area in this case is much larger compared to the loop area of this BH loop. Further, the rate of magnetization is slower in this case. You see, in this case the rate is much steeper. It is steeply rising. So the magnetization curve for which for this BH loop, you see it is much steeper compared to this one. So it is also getting magnetized, but the rate of magnetization or the rise of magnetization is not that much steeper compared to this one. Also, you see the loop area of the BH loop is much larger in this case compared to this. So this will give you less hysteresis loss. So this kind of magnetic material will give less hysteresis loss. It will give less hysteresis loss, and obviously in this case you will have more hysteresis loss because the loop area is more. So you will have more hysteresis loss. It's not like that hysteresis loss only depends on the loop area. It also depends on the frequency of magnetization. That means how frequently, or rather what is the rate of alternating the magnetic field. Because if you give alternating voltage, then the direction of voltage or the direction of current will reverse. So the direction of flux will reverse. So that is also going to determine the hysteresis loss. So I must mention that frequency is also another aspect which we should keep in mind while calculating the hysteresis loss. Less frequency means less hysteresis loss, and more or large frequency means large hysteresis loss. Anyway, so usually we search for a magnetic material which is of soft iron, so that the rate of rise of the magnetization curve is much steeper and the BH loop area is much narrow. So we have less hysteresis loss. But again, I have said sometime earlier that we use CRGO, that is CRGO means cold rolled grain oriented silicon steel. That is CRGO silicon steel is also used mainly for minimizing this hysteresis loss. Now, what we need to find out is that what is the basic mechanism of this transformer working principle or operating principle, because we have said that transformer is an electromagnetic device which is capable of transferring electrical energy from one electrical circuit to another electrical circuit through the medium of magnetic field and without changing frequency. So we are talking about this magnetic field. So this magnetic field is that medium through which energy is transferred from one circuit to another circuit. So in this particular diagram, this winding, which is denoted by symbol P, is connected to a voltage source. So let's say that, okay, let's do one thing, that let us not denote this terminal by E, because that will create a confusion whether it is induced EMF or like that. So let us not use the symbol E for this terminal. Let us use some another symbol. Let's write H. H is again used for the magnetic field intensity. We cannot use H. So let's write capital J. Capital J will do. So what is DJ? D and J are the two terminals of this winding, which is known as primary winding. And what is F and G? F and G are the two terminals of this winding, which is known as secondary winding. Now, why at all we have called this winding to be the primary winding? This is called as primary winding because it is connected to a source of energy. And what is that source of energy? That source of energy is this alternating voltage source. We have studied in our circuit theory that a voltage source is a source of energy. So this winding, which is denoted as P stands for primary winding, is connected to source of energy, or rather I should say that it is connected to source of electrical energy, and this electrical energy is connected with the primary coil in the form of an alternating voltage source. So let us rephrase this in another way. An alternating voltage source is connected with this winding that is named as P. So we call this winding to be the primary winding. So why it is known as primary winding? It is known as primary winding because it is connected with a source of electrical energy. Here the source of electrical energy happens to be an alternating voltage source. Now the question is that if we have connected a battery with the terminal DJ, that means the primary winding has got two terminals. This primary winding, which is indicated by P, it is having two terminals named as D and J. So this terminals of the primary winding, if it is connected to a battery, so the battery can be also thought of as a source of electrical energy. Battery is a source of electrical energy. Although in battery chemical energy is there and that chemical energy is converted into electrical energy, but we are able to receive electrical energy from a battery. So if you connect a battery with this primary terminal, in that case whether this transformer is going to work, the answer is no, it will not work. Why it will not work? Because the working of single phase transformer is depending upon Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction. So Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction says that if a coil is linking a flux, and if that flux linkage of the coil, or if the flux linkage of the coil is going to change with time, is going to vary with time, in that case an EMF will be induced in the coil. For example, let's say that for the purpose of explanation I am saying, let's say that it is having N1 number of turns. This winding has got N1 number of turns and this winding has got, let's say, N2 number of turns. So I am indicating N2 like this. So this is having how many turns? This is having N2 number of turns. So both of the windings, you see, they are linked by a flux which is passing through the magnetic core of the transformer, indicated by blue line. So let us call this flux to be phi. So both are linking a flux which is passing through the magnetic core of the transformer, which we are calling it as phi. So as per Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, we say that EMF induced in this coil, let's say EMF induced in this coil is E1, small e1 I am writing. So let us write it over here. Let me write N1 over here so that it's not getting clumsy. So N1 is the number of turns of this winding, which is named as P. P means primary winding. And why it is called primary winding? Because this winding is connected to a source of electrical energy, and that electrical energy is nothing but an alternating voltage source. So you will have a EMF induced over here, let's say E1. Likewise, you can expect an EMF to be induced over here denoted by E2. So I am not writing that E2 over here, let us write E1 only here. So now according to Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, let me write by Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction. Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, what can we say, is that EMF induced in this coil E1 is nothing but it is proportional to number of turns of the coil, that is N1, multiplied by rate of change of flux linkage with respect to time, that is ddt of phi. So now what made us rather so confident that the derivative of flux will not be zero? Because this winding is connected to an alternating voltage. Let's say V1 is the voltage applied to this thing, and it is having a frequency F. So as I was saying that it will be an alternating voltage source, so it will have its own frequency. So the frequency of this alternating voltage source is F, and it is having the root mean square value or the RMS value as V1. So this being an alternating voltage source, it will drive a current through the primary winding, which is itself alternating. So let us write that to be IE. So what is IE? Current passing through this coil, which is named as primary coil. And if the applied voltage to this coil is alternating voltage, or let us use the word sinusoidal voltage, because by alternating voltage here we mean only one thing, and that is the voltage should be sinusoidal type. That means we should be needing, or rather we will require a sinusoidal voltage source. So this sinusoidal voltage source is connected to this winding P. So since the voltage applied is sinusoidal, so the current IE which is passing through this coil P will be also sinusoidal. So if the current is sinusoidal, then the flux which is created by this current will be also sinusoidal. That means phi will be sinusoidal. So your flux phi is also sinusoidal. So that's why we are so much confident that the derivative of this flux phi, which is passing through the transformer magnetic core, will not be zero. It will have some finite value. So we say that EMF induced in this primary coil E1 is given by N1 into ddt of phi. Now you see, there is no reason to disagree that EMF induced in the secondary winding E2 will be proportional to N2 into ddt of phi, because of the simple reason that the whatever flux is being linked by this primary coil, the same flux is also being linked by this secondary coil, which is denoted by S. So the rate of change of flux linkage with respect to time, that is ddt of phi, rate of change of flux with respect to time, that is ddt of phi, will be same for both primary and secondary, because they are being linked by the same flux. And what is the path which is taken up by this flux? This path is being taken up by the flux which is mainly confined in the transformer magnetic core. So the path which is taken up by this magnetic lines of flux is confined in the transformer magnetic core. So that's why this flux phi is actually more prevalently known by the name of mutual flux. So it is much common to call this flux phi, which is passing through the transformer magnetic core, as mutual flux. That means it is trying to indicate that the flux which is passing through the transformer magnetic core, is actually linking both the primary coil as well as the secondary coil. So this flux which is passing through the transformer magnetic core is linking both the primary coils as well as the secondary coils. So that's why they are known by the name of mutual flux, because they are mutual, they are common, or rather the same flux is being linked by the primary coil as well as the secondary coil. So that's why they are called as mutual flux. So ddt of phi, that is rate of change of mutual flux with respect to time, it will be same for both primary and your secondary coils. So that's why we have written ddt of phi, and secondary was having n2 number of turns, primary was having n1 number of turns. So that is the induced EMF in the primary and secondary. Now you see, it is very simple to make out that which winding is the primary winding and which winding will be the secondary winding in case of transformer. The primary winding will be connected to an alternating voltage source, that is some source of electrical energy, and secondary winding will be connected to an electrical load. Usually we see that there is a only transfer of energy from one circuit to another circuit through the medium of magnetic field without change of frequency. So that's what we are saying, that what I am saying, that this mutual flux phi and this alternating voltage which is applied to the primary winding, they are very much integral part, or they are very much essential for this working of the transformer. So only electrical energy is transferred from one circuit to the another circuit. So the load which is connected on the secondary winding of the transformer will be your electrical load, because you are only transferring electrical energy from primary circuit to the secondary circuit. So electrical energy is available across the secondary circuit. So you will connect an electrical load across the secondary terminals F and G. So electrical load will be connected across the secondary terminals F and G over here. So this primary and secondary terms are going to have their useful meaning if and only if the transformer is in operation or the transformer is energized. If the transformer is not being operated or the transformer is not operating, so that means what? If transformer is not operating, that means no alternating voltage source is connected and there is no load connected also. Load is also not there, because transformer, if it is not working, then there won't be any alternating voltage source, neither there will be any load. So you are unable to find out, or rather you are unable to identify that which winding will be a primary winding and which winding will be a secondary winding. Because how we used to identify that which winding is the primary winding? The winding which is connected to an alternating voltage source, that is your source of electrical energy, that was our primary winding. So we have identified the primary winding as that winding which is connected to some alternating voltage source. So that means what? If the transformer is not operating, in that case there is no alternating voltage source connected. So if there is no alternating voltage source connected, then you are unable to identify which winding will be a primary winding. Likewise, if there is no electrical load connected to the windings, then you are unable to identify that which winding will be your secondary winding, because secondary winding is that winding which is connected to some electrical load. But if there is no electrical load, then you are unable to identify the secondary winding. So that's what we say, that the word primary and secondary are applicable if the transformer is in operation. If the transformer is not operating, then the word primary and secondary are not applicable. So what are the words which are usually used? Usually we can use another set of word named as HV winding, that is high voltage winding, and low voltage winding. So this low voltage and high voltage winding, you see, this thing has come from the fact that we have seen that the purpose of the transformer can be either to step up the voltage or to step down the voltage. Like in case of your power system, in case of power system, at the sending end we need to step up the voltage, and at the receiving end we need to step down the voltage. So if you want to step up the voltage, in that case you want to step up the voltage means what? The voltage of the alternating voltage source will be less and the voltage of the secondary winding should be more. So the secondary winding will be the high voltage winding and the low voltage winding will be the primary winding. So in case of step up transformer, the primary winding will be the low voltage winding and the secondary winding will be the high voltage winding, because you want to step up the voltage. So whatever alternating voltage is connected with the primary winding, the voltage which will be induced in the secondary winding should be higher than the voltage which is applied to the primary winding. This is happening in case of step up transformer. So in step up transformer, the low voltage winding will be the primary winding and high voltage winding will be the secondary winding. See, in a similar way you can easily make out that in case of step down transformer, low voltage winding will be the secondary winding and the high voltage winding will be the primary winding. So the word LV and HV are also more commonly used in order to indicate the two windings of a transformer. Now whenever I am talking about this power system and whenever I am talking about stepping up or stepping down the voltage in power transmission lines, I must mention that the transformers which are used in power system, they are three-phase transformer. Although I have drawn here the diagram of a single-phase transformer and I am talking about your power system, so it might give an impression to some of the audience that single-phase transformer is used in power system. Sorry, it's not like that. Your three-phase transformer is used. Three-phase transformer is used in power system, because we know that power generation and transmission is done in three-phase system. From the point of view of economy, from the point of view of stability, and also you have learned in your basic electrical that the instantaneous power in a three-phase system, is a constant. So from these consideration we say that the power transmission and generation, or the generation and transmission of electrical power is done in three phases. So I was saying for quite a long time in this video lecture that transformer is used for stepping up the voltage, stepping down the voltage in a power system. Although I am showing the diagram of a single phase transformer, so some of the audience they might form that impression. So again I am saying that in case of power system, three-phase transformers are used. Now one thing I can mention is that this three-phase transformer which are used in power system, they can be classified as bank of three-phase transformer and three-phase transformer. So what is the meaning of this word bank of three-phase transformer? This word bank of three-phase transformer implies that there are three separate or three individual single-phase transformers. So we have three numbers of single-phase transformers which are individual and separate. So what we do now, we connect the windings of these three separate single-phase transformers in such a way that it behaves or works like a three-phase transformer. So that combination is known as bank of three-phase transformer. So in bank of three-phase transformer we have actually three separate or three individual single-phase transformer units, and these three single-phase transformer units are connected appropriately to function as a three-phase transformer. Now let me come back. Let me tell you that these two diagrams which are indicated over here. One is related to single phase core type transformer. Another is the representation of a single phase shell type transformer. So these are nothing but these are the cross sectional view. That means they are the two-dimensional representation. You have to think that the transformer core is being you have to imagine that the transformer core is being cut by a plane which is in this direction. That means if I cut this transformer core along a plane in this line, then this thing will become a rectangle. So that is what you are seeing here, rectangle. Now I need to mention few points before I again come back to this single phase core type transformer. Is that you see this particular portion is known as the yoke of the transformer. This portion is known as yoke. This portion is also known as yoke. So you may call this to be the bottom yoke and this to be the top yoke. So top yoke, bottom yoke, and these portions of the transformer are known as limb. You may also call this to be leg. So this vertical portion of the transformer, is known as limb, or you can call it to be leg. Again, this vertical portion of the transformer is known as limb. You may also call this to be the leg of the transformer. So these are the limb or leg of the transformer, and this portion is the yoke of the transformer. This rectangular area is usually known by the name transformer window. Now this area A, which is indicated over here by this green rectangle, it is representing that area which is available for the mutual flux. You see, the mutual flux phi is passing through this transformer magnetic core. So the question arises that how much area of cross section is available for the mutual flux to pass. So this rectangle, which is shown by this green color rectangle, is the area which is denoted by symbol capital A, is the area which is available for the mutual flux. So you may also for the time being consider this to be the limb of the transformer. So if this is the limb of the transformer, so if I cut this by a plane, so the top surface, it will have some area. So that is the area which is available for the mutual flux to pass, or you can simply call this area to be the area A, which is indicated over here. So this is the same thing. So I am talking about this area A, which is available for the mutual flux. So you can compare this area with this area. So this is the area which is available for the lines of flux. So if you cut this, then you will have a area at the top. So that area is that area A over here. Now there needs to be made a clarification between the actual distribution or the placement of the windings and the schematic representation. What you see here, that the primary winding is shown to be placed over this limb and the secondary winding is shown to be placed over this limb. So that means no portion of the primary winding is placed on this limb. Likewise, no portion of the secondary winding is placed on this limb. Entirely all the number of turns of primary winding are placed on this limb. Likewise, entirely all the number of turns of secondary winding are placed on this limb. But this thing is all actually shown in the schematic representation. This is not the actual fact. In actual practice, what happens is that half of the number of turns of primary winding will be placed on this limb and the remaining half of the number of turns will be placed on this limb. Likewise, half of the number of secondary winding turns will be placed on this limb and the remaining half of the number of turns of the secondary winding will be placed on this limb. So this is the actual arrangement which is done in real life or actual practice. But in our schematic representation, we usually indicate by this way, that all the number of primary winding turns are on this limb only confined, and all the number of turns of secondary winding are confined in this limb. But this is only shown in the schematic representation. It is not the actual practice. What is the actual practice? Actual practice is that half of the number of turns of primary winding will be placed on this limb, and the remaining half of the number of turns of the primary winding will be placed on this limb. Likewise, half of the number of secondary windings will be placed on this limb, and the remaining half of the secondary winding will be placed on this limb. So why this thing is done? Why we actually place half of the turns here, half of the turns here, then half of the secondary turns here, half of the secondary turns here? Why it is done like that? This is done with the sole purpose of minimizing the leakage flux in a transformer. Actually, I have only indicated the path which is taken up by the mutual flux. And what is the path which is taken up by the mutual flux? Mutual flux is passing through the core of the transformer, or the mutual flux is passing through the magnetic core of the transformer. But besides this mutual flux, there will be another type of flux which will be not passing through the transformer magnetic core. Rather, it will pass through a point which is partly through the transformer magnetic core and partly through the air. That means it may be like this. So this can be a possible portion of the lines of flux for leakage flux. So this particular thing will be termed as leakage flux. So leakage flux is trying to indicate that it has leaked from, or it has deviated from its intended path. What is the intended path? The intended path of the mutual flux, is the transformer magnetic core. We want that all the magnetic lines of flux should be confined. All the magnetic lines of flux should be confined in the transformer magnetic core. This is what we want. But in actual practice, what happens? Some of the magnetic lines of flux, they will choose a path, or they will take up a path which is partly through the limb of the transformer and partly through the air. So this portion is through air and this portion is through the limb of the transformer. So this flux, which is not confined in the transformer magnetic core, is known as leakage flux. Now we should try to identify that whether leakage flux is useful for the operation of transformer or it is not useful from the point of view of operation of transformer. You see, transformer, the actual purpose of a transformer is to transfer electrical energy from one circuit to another circuit through the medium of magnetic field and without changing frequency. So by this you can find out that the flux which is helping to transfer electrical energy from this circuit to this circuit will be that flux which is linking this winding as well as this winding. So whichever lines of flux are such that whichever lines of flux are linking both the primary coil as well as the secondary coil will be useful, because the lines of flux which is linking the primary coil as well as the secondary coil will help in transferring electrical energy from one circuit to the another circuit, because it is linking both the coils. So it has to be your mutual flux. That is, path which is taken up by the mutual flux is through the transformer magnetic core. So if the mutual flux is taking a path which is through the transformer magnetic core, then definitely it will link this primary coil as well as the secondary coil. So it will help in transfer of electrical energy from this circuit to this circuit. So we say that it is useful from the point of view of your transfer of electrical energy. transfer of electrical energy from one circuit to another circuit. So mutual flux is useful because it helps in transferring electrical energy from one circuit to another circuit. But the thing is that leakage flux, you see, leakage flux is linking only this coil. This leakage flux is not linking the secondary coil. This leakage flux is linking only the primary coil. So this leakage flux cannot participate. This leakage flux cannot participate in the process of transfer of electrical energy from this winding to this winding. So that's why we say that leakage flux is not desirable or leakage flux is not useful from the point of view of operation of a transformer. So we actually divide the number of turns of primary winding as well as secondary winding in such a way that half of the number of turns of primary winding is placed on this limb, remaining half of the number of turns of primary winding is placed on this limb. Similarly, half of the number of secondary turns will be placed on this limb and remaining half of the number of turns of secondary winding will be placed on this limb. So this way we are able to minimize the leakage flux. So the only reason for dividing this number of turns into two equal halves, such as let's say half of the number of turns of low voltage coil is placed on this limb and remaining half of the low voltage turns are placed on this limb. Likewise, half of the turns of high voltage winding is placed on this limb and remaining half of the number of turns of high voltage winding is placed on this limb. So we are distributing the number of turns for both LV winding and HV winding into two equal halves, and we are arranging the turns of both low voltage winding and high voltage winding in such a way that half of the low voltage winding turns are on this limb, remaining half on this limb. The same thing for HV. So this arrangement helps in minimizing the leakage flux. That is the only reason. Now we see that one point is that transformer is capable of transferring electrical energy from one circuit to another circuit through the medium of magnetic field and without changing frequency. That is okay. And also we have said that the transformer can be used for stepping up the voltage or stepping down the voltage. So wherever there is a stepping up of voltage, on that side there has to be stepping down of current, and wherever there is a stepping down of voltage, there has to be stepping up of current. What is the logic behind this? The logic is that if we ignore the losses which are taking place in a transformer, then input energy should be equal to output energy, because we are ignoring the losses. So if energy is same, then obviously the energy per unit time, that means power, energy per unit time, that means power, will also be same on both the windings. And what is the expression of power? If you have applied a voltage source, then expression of power will be voltage into current, that is V into I. So voltage into current, that is V into I, that is volt ampere. It will be same for both low voltage winding as well as high voltage winding. So if volt into ampere, that is voltage into current, is same for both low voltage and high voltage winding, then it obviously demands that for low voltage winding, voltage being less, current will be larger, and for high voltage winding, voltage being larger, current will be less. So that is one way of saying. But of course we should remember that whenever we are saying this, that volt into ampere, that is voltage into current, is same for both LV and HV winding, we are actually ignoring the losses which are taking place in a transformer. Let me tell you that in case of transformer, the efficiency is usually very large. You may expect an efficiency of 95% or even 99% in case of MVA rated transformer which are used in power transmission system. So what is the reason behind that very huge value of efficiency in case of transformer? The reason is that transformer has got no rotating part. Actually, transformer is devoid. That means it is not comprising of any rotating part or any moving part. So basically, transformer is a static device. It has got no moving or rotating part. So you are actually simply ruling out any kind of rotational loss, any kind of friction and windage, because in a transformer in a transformer there is no rotating part or there is no moving part. So you cannot expect mechanical losses to occur. So if there is no mechanical losses in a transformer, because there is no rotating or moving element present in a transformer, you can expect that the efficiency of transformer can be very high, as high as 95%, or even in case of power transformer which are used for stepping up the voltage in power generating station, whose rating is in the range of MVA, that is megavolt ampere, you can expect there in those transformers, you can expect that it is having an efficiency of even 99%. So that way we can say that the volt ampere, that is voltage into current, volt ampere for both LV and HV winding are equal. So by that logic you see that for LV winding the number of for LV winding the current carried will be larger because voltage is less, and vice versa for high voltage winding. Now regarding the number of turns, it is a very simple rule. You see, we have seen that EMF induced in this coil E1 was proportional to N1 times ddt of phi, and EMF induced in this coil having N2 number of turns was given by N2 times ddt of phi. Now ddt of phi is the rate of change of the mutual flux or the time derivative of the mutual flux. So these are same for both the coils. So whichever coil is going to have larger number of turns, that will have more voltage. So if you want this to be a step down transformer, so for step down transformer, what can be said? For step down transformer N1 will be, for step down transformer N1 should be greater than N2. But for step up transformer, what should be there? N1 should be less than N2. Or rather, you may say in a different way. For high voltage winding, number of turns will be larger. That means number of turns in high voltage winding will be larger, and in low voltage winding the number of turns will be smaller. That means NLV. NLV is nothing but number of turns of low voltage winding, and NHV is the number of turns of high voltage winding. So high voltage winding means voltage induced is larger. So if voltage induced is larger, then number of turns has to be larger. So N will be larger for high voltage winding. For low voltage winding, induced EMF is less. So if induced EMF is less, then number of turns has to be less. So number of turns of low voltage winding, that is NLV, will be lesser, isn't it? On the other hand, we cannot expect that energy is either stepping up or stepping down, because that is a direct contradiction or violation of conservation of energy principle. We say that we cannot create or destroy energy. So if we cannot create or destroy energy, in that case we say that V into I, volt into ampere, on both the HV and LV side are equal. So for that to happen, we can say that the area of cross section on the HV side will be smaller and area of cross section on the LV side will be thicker or larger, because we are saying that voltage on HV side and current on HV side. What else we are saying? Voltage on LV side, current on LV side. So obviously voltage on HV side is larger and voltage on LV, that is low voltage side, is smaller. So from there you see, this is ILV means current in the low voltage winding, and IHV means current in the high voltage winding. So since high voltage side voltage is greater than low voltage side. So we can say current in the low voltage side is greater than current in the high voltage side. So this is current carried by LV, current carried by LV, low voltage winding, and this is current carried by this is current carried by high voltage winding. So if current is less for high voltage winding, obviously you can expect that the area of cross section for the high voltage winding will be thinner, and the area of cross section for the low voltage winding will be thicker, or it will be larger. So area of cross section, we may also write this, that area of cross section for LV winding will be greater than area of cross section for HV winding. So area of cross section for LV winding is greater than the area of cross section of HV, that is high voltage winding. Now let us focus on this thing, that this type of transformer is known as single phase core type transformer. So what you see here, that the iron core of the transformer is surrounded by the winding, because this LV winding, you can think of this way, that you may assume that there is some cylindrical structure will be formed. Let's say this is our limb of the transformer. So around the limb, what I will do first, you see, the core of a transformer is usually grounded. The core of a transformer is usually grounded. So if the core is grounded, then in that case you can expect the potential of the core to be zero. So first a layer of insulation has to be applied across the limb. First you have to apply a layer of insulation across the transformer limb. So after placing the layer of insulation across the transformer limb, you will start putting up the LV winding. So if you put up the LV winding, then if you view the entire number of turns of LV winding, it can be thought of as a cylindrical structure, because each coils are roughly your circular coils, and these circular coils are spanning from top of the limb to the bottom of the limb. So these are cylindrical structure. So this LV winding is forming a cylinder. This HV winding, high voltage winding, is also forming a cylinder. So these are two concentric cylinders, and of course between any two layers there will be insulation. You see these blue lines which are indicated over here. So these blue lines are indicating the insulation layer which is provided. You see there is a blue line between the core and the low voltage winding here. There is a blue line between the core and the LV winding here. So this blue line is indicating the layer of insulation. So first you have to provide a layer of insulation across the limb. So that layer of insulation will surround the limb, and then you will put up the low voltage winding. Then again you will give a layer of insulation, and then you will put up the high voltage winding. So this low voltage winding and high voltage winding, you can approximate that these windings which are placed along the limb in this manner, they are actually replaced by some cylinder, because if you view the entire number of turns of the low voltage winding, then this can be thought of as some sort of cylindrical structure, and this cylindrical structure is wound across the limb of the transformer. So the center of the limb of the transformer will be the axis, and these coils which are surrounding the limb can be thought of as the cylinder. So this LV winding is that thing, that the coils are like this. Now the one obvious question people do ask is that what is the advantage you get by placing the low voltage winding near the transformer core? What would have happened if we have placed the high voltage winding near to the transformer core? So it has to do with the amount or the thickness of insulation which is required. As I have said that the transformer core is grounded. So if the transformer core is grounded, the potential of the transformer core is 0. Let's say the low voltage winding is having voltage of 11 kilovolt and high voltage winding is having a voltage of 33 kilovolt. So if high voltage is having a voltage, if high voltage winding is having a voltage of 33 kilovolt, then if I place the high voltage winding near the core of the transformer, there will be a potential difference of 33 kilovolt because core is grounded, so its potential is 0 and the high voltage is having a voltage of 33 kilovolt. So we have to provide an insulator which will insulate a voltage of 33 kilovolt in case high voltage is kept near the core of the transformer. On the other hand, if you are placing the low voltage winding near the core, so when the low voltage winding is placed near the core, then the potential difference is coming out to be 11 kilovolt only because core is grounded, so its potential is 0 and the low voltage winding is assumed to be a voltage. Low voltage winding is assumed to have a voltage of 11 kilovolt. So only potential difference of 11 kilovolt if you place low voltage winding near the core. If you place the low voltage winding near the transformer core, only 11 kilovolt potential difference is there. So we have to insulate only that much potential difference. So in that case the thickness of the insulation is less and also the length of the each turn of the LV winding. Each turn means if you think that there is a circular disc for each of the turn, then the diameter of that circular disc which is representing each turn of the LV winding will also reduce. So the length of the each turn will also reduce because the thickness of insulation is less. So this is the reason primarily we prefer to place the low voltage winding near the core and not HV winding, because if you place high voltage winding near the core, in that case the insulation requirement will go up and also the length of the each turn of the coil. Length of the each turn of the coil means, if you again allow me, then I will again I will tell you the same thing. If this is my limb, so there is a layer of insulation. If this is the limb of the transformer, so there is a layer of insulation which is surrounding the limb. So if the layer of that surrounding insulation, is thicker, in that case the length of each turn of the coil will be also more, because the diameter will increase and the length of each turn will increase because it is given by pi d if you assume circular coils. So this is one reason. Now in this single phase core type transformer, you see that the magnetic core of the transformer is surrounded by the windings. So this type of single phase core type transformer is very much useful and desirable if you expect frequent maintenance of the windings, because you see the HV winding and LV winding, both high voltage and low voltage winding are somewhat more easily accessible in case of core type transformer, because in case of core type transformer the core is surrounded by winding. So if there is some damage to the insulation, between the two layers of winding, or if there is some damage to the windings of the coils, then it can be easily inspected in case of core type transformer. Now this arrangement is also used. So this arrangement is usually named as shell type transformer. In shell type transformer, what happens? Reverse is happening. Reverse is happening means the winding of the transformer is surrounded by the magnetic core or the transformer core. So these are the windings of the transformer, and the windings of the transformer are surrounded by the core. Windings of the transformer is surrounded by the core. Now you will find it here that in case of this thing also, in case of shell type transformer also, you see that LV winding is placed near the core, LV winding is placed near the core, LV winding is placed near the core, so as to minimize the requirement of insulation, because potential difference will be less if you place the LV winding, because core is grounded, so the potential of core is 0. You see here what is actually done. This center low voltage winding coil and this outer two edges of low voltage coil, they are somewhat differing in thickness. The thickness of this central low voltage coil, the thickness of this central low voltage coil will be twice that of the thickness of this LV coil which is placed at the top, and also the thickness of the LV coil which is placed at the bottom. The thickness of this LV coil which is placed at the bottom will be half that of the thickness of the LV coil placed at the center. So this is to be noted that the width of this LV coil at the top and bottom, width of this LV coil at the top and bottom is half of the width of the LV coil which is placed at the center. And the high voltage winding is sandwiched between these two LV coils. High voltage winding is sandwiched between these two low voltage coils. So this kind of arrangement actually gives you a lesser value of leakage flux compared to this core type transformer. So the value of the leakage flux in case of shell type transformer is somewhat less compared to the value of the leakage flux in case of single phase core type transformer. Now a very common thing you can observe here is that in case of core type transformer there are only two limbs, whereas in shell type transformer there are three limbs. This is the central limb and these two are the outer limbs. So you see the width of the central limb is twice, that is 2W, and it is double that of the width of the two outer limbs. This outer limb is having a width of W, this limb is also having a width of W. So the outer two limbs of the shell type is having a width W and the central limb is having a width of 2W. So why the central limb width is twice that of the outer two limbs? This is obvious because you see the flux which is passing through the central limb is getting divided into two equal halves. So 5/2 half is flowing through this outer limb and the remaining 5/2 is being set up through this outer limb. So flux passing or flux which is established through the central limb is having value phi, and this phi flux which is established through the central limb is divided into two equal halves, 5/2 and 5/2. So this 5/2 is returning through the outer limb, 5/2 is returning through the outer limb. So if you want that the value of the magnetic flux density B is given by the ratio of phi by A, that is flux by area of cross section. So if I want to have the same value of magnetic flux density in each part of the transformer core, then don't you think that area has to be adjusted wherever flux has changed? So in the central limb flux is phi, but in the outer limbs flux is 5/2. So if the flux is half, then area should be also half. So if area is half, that means width is half here. But in the central limb flux is phi, that is twice of the flux at the outer two limbs. So area should be also twice. So that's why width is larger for the central limb. Actually the width of the central limb is twice that of the outer two limbs. Now after having said this, let us try to more closely look at the path of the mutual flux. You see, this path of the mutual flux is passing through this transformer magnetic core, and we should strive and do our best that this transformer magnetic core is built from a magnetic material which is having very large value of permeability, that is mu, so that the reluctance of the transformer core is very small. If the reluctance of the transformer core is very small, in that case you can expect that the MMF, that is magnetomotive force which is required for setting up the flux phi through the transformer core, that magnetomotive force will be also small. If magnetomotive force is small, then we can neglect that magnetomotive force. So we can simply say that for a transformer, the primary winding MMF and secondary winding MMF are almost equal. Actually, strictly speaking, primary winding MMF should be equal to secondary winding MMF plus magnetizing MMF. Actually, what can be seen is that the moment some current starts flowing through the secondary coil, it will have its own magnetomotive force, and according to Lenge's law, the magnetomotive force of the secondary coil will try to oppose the magnetomotive force of the primary coil. So primary coil should be strong enough to overcome the demagnetizing effect of the secondary MMF, and besides this, it should also be able to produce some MMF which will help in setting up the mutual flux in the transformer magnetic core. So that's why we say that primary MMF should be equal to secondary MMF plus magnetizing MMF. But for a transformer, the magnetic material are chosen in such a way that the core of the transformer or the magnetic core of the transformer provides very small reluctance to the mutual flux phi, and thereby the need for the magnetizing MMF in a transformer is very small. So for all practical purpose, we can say that the primary MMF and secondary MMF are almost equal. That is, ampere turns on HV side and ampere turns on LV side are same or equal. Now, this was some of the discussions which is related to the introduction of single phase transformer. So mainly I have drawn and shown the diagram which is related to single phase two winding transformer, but there can be other variations also possible, but let us confine ourselves for this particular course the operation of single phase two winding transformer. When we study three phase transformer, in case of three phase transformer we will encounter three phase three winding transformer. So in case of three phase three winding transformer, there will be LV winding, HV winding, and there will be tertiary winding. So the function of the tertiary winding is to supply the power to the auxiliaries which are present in a substation, or it can be also used for powering the load requirement of the substation or any locality which is there in the vicinity of the substation. So three phase three winding transformer we will study later, but as of now we have discussed regarding only single phase two winding transformer. Okay, let it be up to this. Thank you all.